I'm your host, HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today we are back with season 3 of Castlevania. This is really uncharted territory for me because I kind of knew what season 2 was gonna be about, and now it's also kind of an uncharted territory because this is not no longer based on one of the games. This is just doing whatever it wants with the source material.
Well, there's
So
references, but yeah, it's pretty
yeah,
much
but
it's open
but like
waters from here.
it's not like with the first two that I could tell, oh, that's Castlevania 3. This is just we have the characters, we can do what we want with these characters. I
Mm.
guess we could say this is the first season where the showrunners were just free to do whatever they wanted.
And your thoughts?
I really want to like this show. I really want to like this show. But this season, man, this season,
I
can I
kind of
even
figured.
call it a season? Can I even call it a season? There's like nothing happens. Nothing.
I think, well, I think stuff does happen, but I said before I felt that this was my personal favorite season. Watching it back, I think my personal favorite probably goes more towards 4, as I have more of a refresher course. So I
Okay,
think I think
I'll
season 3 is a close
just
second.
know. Yeah, but just know season 4. Then again, if this is your close second, then I don't know what to think, what to expect in season 4. Because to me, this really feels like they built up season 4 instead of actually doing something for a season 3. This was like a season, 0.4, I guess you could call it.
In some ways, you're not wrong, I'll say, but I think stuff does go on this season. But ultimately, yeah, a lot of
You know
it's
what?
very meaningless. Like,
I'll
oh, go ahead.
if I may rephrase it, it's not that nothing happens in this season, but it takes a long ass time until these things start to happen.
Yeah, yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. I think the best way to describe season 3 is you essentially have 4 different stories going on within season 3. You have
Yeah.
the main plot, I would say, which is Trevor and Sypha doing
Is
their
it the main
thing.
plot? Is it the main plot?
I
Because
would
this,
argue
I
it's the main
feel,
plot because it does link back to Dracula at least somewhat more than the other plots do, right?
yeah, but you say that, but then there are episodes where that plot line essentially goes nowhere. Like, I don't remember, not much of a spoiler here, but there's an episode in like the middle of the season, which all we get from them, from Trevor and Cypher, is one scene of them talking about something from the previous episode, and that's it. That's all their plotline has to do with that episode. The rest is focusing on other things.
Well, it's
Which
oh, go ahead.
which fine, but also it feels like they're dragging this out to fill a season. And if the other thing weren't around, the Trevor and Cypher stuff could have been solved. Like it would by say if you just cut down all the Trevor and Cypher scenes from this season, you'll end up with like 2 to 3 episodes.
Trevor and Cypher's stuff is not the things I would cut out personally.
And I'm not saying that. I'm just
No,
saying
I,
that
I get you. I get you.
for saying that this is the main focus. It's like they could like their stuff, counting everything up 2 minutes, maybe clocks in at three
Well,
episodes.
I think
Maybe.
I would refer to it like Trevor and Cypher's plot A. Like that's kind of
Okay.
the beginning plot. That's the plot you start off with. That's the plot that links back to, I would argue, the first 2 seasons more so than, say, plot B, which is Alucard's little story going on, plot C, which is Isaac's story going on, and then plot D, which is Hector's story going on.
Yeah, like the Alucard stuff, it's like we see him in the first episode, and then it's like when he shows up again, it's like, all right, I forgot about him, honestly.
I think, before we get into any huge spoilers since we're getting close to that
Yes.
territory. Anyways, I will say, right, I enjoy season 3. It's a split cast in its entirety, main cast as well, other than 2 characters being together from what we saw before. It's hard to
Mhm.
do split cast stories, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
I've rarely seen it done well. I think this show does it decently well. I at least enjoy 2 of these stories. One of them, the other one, I just don't care for. We'll get into which ones those are. But yeah,
I,
they do it well,
you know,
right?
I get what you mean that it's hard to do this kind of story right. Like there are people who can't even do a dual storyline right. Like and that is just about two characters going on separate journeys and eventually, they meet up in the middle. But this I felt if I wouldn't say did it well though, because if I'm jumping around too much and at the end of the day, I don't really care for either plot because I'm not given much time with each plot in each episode. If the show doesn't get me invested, and sadly it didn't, then something is wrong here. Something is off.
Oh,
But another thing I actually want to ask you, because I kind of thought about this, like this is an animated show, which don't get me wrong, the animation is fantastic, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But this season in particular, there was, and not to say that the previous two seasons didn't have this because they did, but there was so much talking in this season. I honestly didn't see the point of making it animated. Like there was nothing that I'm like, yeah, this is a story that needs to be animated. I didn't really get that. It's a nitpick, but I thought I'll bring this up.
Would you think it would have been better live action or?
I'm not necessarily saying that it will be better as live action, but when I heard that there was an animated Castlevania series, then I said, okay, you know what? It being animated actually kind of works out because it allows them to do action sequences and some stuff that would be just too hard to do in live action, and you'll need to CG it anyways.
Mhm.
So, and in the first two seasons, I felt they used the medium well. In this season, I just felt that, with the exception of some of the later stuff, we'll get to it. There was no real reason to make this animated. It was just people sitting down and talking.
I, I don't disagree, but I don't know. I think yeah. I am stunned in silence. You've given me a point that I can't refute. I mean,
I'm
I,
not. I'm not asking you to refute it. I just brought up something that crossed my mind as I was watching it.
I mean, I enjoy watching them sitting around and talking. I think the characters interact well enough that it's enjoyable to watch and listen to, right? But I will admit there's not a lot of things going on within the animation as far as these characters talking. There's not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of stuff happening. Like
Yeah.
compare these characters sitting around and talking to, say, He-Man done by the same studio. You can clearly see like the experience difference there, right? There's some scenes where those characters are standing around and sitting
I
around talking, I would argue, that are more enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's experience, or maybe it just comes down to a directing thing,
Mm-hmm.
to to like the crew behind the show.
This
Could
is
very
true.
much be that.
I will ask you, considering this is a dueling stories season,
Mhm.
and we have the separated cast stories and everything, is there an example you can give of this being done well? Because I honestly can't think of many
Like
personally.
I
Nothing
could
comes to
I could think
mind.
I could think of some, but like not necessarily at the moment. I need to I'm going over some of the stuff that I have in my collection here. Maybe in Avatar: The Last Airbender, there are
Mhm.
some episodes that jump between a few characters, and And like each storyline is satisfying in its own way, and eventually everything comes full circle.
I think that does it in episodes, though, doesn't it? It doesn't do it a whole like season where everything is split.
And the thing is that Avatar: The Last Airbender has more episodes per season to work with.
True.
So for one, there's that, but two, you could argue that each episode is connected because it is a show about traveling, and there is like a beginning, middle, end. It's not like if you tune in for like episode 6 of some season, yeah, the episode is self-contained, but there is stuff to know from the previous episodes. There are stuff to look forward to in the next episode. It's not just something that you can tune in for half an hour and then shut down. There
Mm,
is a continuous plot in it.
that's fair. I think from my experience, the only thing that's really coming to mind as far as separated cast dueling storylines goes is Ruby Volume 5. And
A bit. You know what? I'd
while I'm
even
a huge fan
argued.
of Ruby, I would say that I feel Ruby Volume 5 doesn't do it as well as this show does here.
I'd even argue that Ruby Volume 4 did this too. Like
Mm,
4 and
kind of
5.
both of them, yeah.
Yeah, and even I'd
Especially
argue some
4.
of the later volumes, which for the most part, actually, something I thought about this. I written this down, and I feel like this season kind of suffers from the same problems that the later volumes of Ruby suffered, if I'm
Hmm.
honest. And I know, and I knew it was going to be interesting to talk to you about this, and I also knew that you were going to say you like this season because you enjoy those volumes of Ruby because of the character development, because
Mm-hmm.
these characters sit down and talk about what they think about certain situations. And while that's great and all, I also feel like doing too much of that eventually brings the show down to a crawl.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both shows eventually kind of suffered from it because with Ruby, especially, go listen to our volume, was it 8? Yeah, volume 8 review,
Yeah,
where even I think for even I said it for even 7. I don't,
you did.
both of them maybe.
You did.
Yeah, that like there's an interesting stuff going. There are interesting things going on. There are interesting ideas that are being presented. But when push comes to shove, we're jumping around between so many characters, so many storylines, and when the season ends, I'm like, well, what did we accomplish?
Which is fair from a kind of main storyline perspective. But I also count in, like, character growth and things like that, and how have characters changed and what has happened to them to make them
Yeah,
more interesting and stuff of that. And I'll
yeah,
kind
and
of,
that's
all
fair.
right, I can take that and walk away and say, yeah, I enjoyed that season. And I think looking at season 3 of Castlevania here, right, like, I'll say this without jumping into major spoilers. Season 2, I said it before, right? I didn't care for Hector at all. Blah. Isaac, I'm a little interested. I would, Isaac and Hector, like, I don't care about them, but I would be interested to learn more.
Mhm.
We get into season 3 and we have a storyline that's entirely focused on Isaac. And personally, like, season 3 is where I've stated in the past to others, and I'll say it here, where Isaac for me became a way more enjoyable character, where I actually started to like Isaac a lot, even comparative to the main cast. Like, I thought Isaac's story was genuinely very interesting, and one of the more interesting ones, like what he was going through and what he was dealing with.
Mhm.
I'll admit it. I'll say it now, Hector. I still don't care. I don't give a
Mhm.
shit about you.
And yeah, and the Hector storyline is also without giving too much away. We'll get to this. Oh, do you want to just go to
Yeah, I
spoilers
mean,
now because we?
again, season 3, like, I said it before in our season 2 coverage. I do feel season 3 is a vast departure from what you're used to from season 1 and 2 because of what
Mhm.
season 3 does. I do think what season 3 does is better, than what season 1 and 2 were doing. I think it gives you a lot more. I think it's more character focused, and I enjoy it, but it does have problems.
Which, by the way, I'm not saying this as necessarily negative or positive, but how how ironic is it that the point of the show that you enjoyed the most as of now is when the show goes completely against the games, and when it tried to adapt to one of the games, you were less invested.
I mean,
I just find it ironic.
I again, right? Like I've always, I think, stated. If I've not, I'll say it here now, especially, and I will continue to probably say it in the future as well. I think if you're going to do video game adaptations of stuff, like if you're going to do adaptations in general, from whether it be a show to a game or a game to a show or anything, whether it's a show to a book or a book to a show, like anything you do, right? If you're going to do these adaptations, if you're going to take these things over, don't just look at a game story and say we're going to follow that exactly. Just do that again. I don't care. I've
No,
played through the game. I've watched the show. I don't want to play through the show again. I
uh,
don't want to
don't
watch
do
the
it
game
exactly the
again.
same.
I want to see
Don't
something
do it exactly the
entirely
same.
different.
Yeah, don't do exactly the same, but also keep the original theme of it. Keep the
Mhm.
original core of it, because if you do that, what's the point?
Yeah. Like again, if you can't nail the feeling, the core, the themes, then what you're making is something entirely different. But if you can at least, capture that feeling, right? Then you can more or less do whatever you want to do, in my opinion. You can give your
Yeah,
winks and nods, sure. Everybody loves their winks and nods, or a little bit of fan service. It's fun. We all love it. But you don't have to do that. And arguably, it's just as enjoyable if you don't, because what you've created is something that's entirely unique and different from what I already have played through or watched. And that's what I'm here for, to see new things.
yeah, I'm with you on that. And yeah, again, as long as the original idea is being intact, but that's a story for another day, which we talked about in the previous episode
Hmm.
anyway. So, spoilers for
Yeah.
season three from this point on. If you haven't seen it, close the episode, go watch it, come back later.
Hmm.
Three, two, one. Still here, good. So, Hector, the thing
Oh, we're
that
starting with
annoyed
that
me
one.
with
Oh God.
I want to start with that one, not just because this is one you hate the most and I want to get it out of the way, but I just want to say that because the Hector plot is basically my problem with this season. That again, it's a thing where they keep talking and they build it up, and he has this thing with that vampire chick,
Lenore.
and
I
no,
love her.
yeah,
I enjoy
no,
Lenore.
no, that's the thing, that she's kind of cool, but what is the thing is that she's talking to him while he's rotting in prison. She then kind of teases him. They have a little thing going on, and then all of a sudden she like seduces him to have sex with her, and she turns them into her puppet.
Yep.
And then she
Pet.
comes, and then she comes to her sisters, which by the way, Carmilla, what the hell happened here? Like, wasn't she built up in the previous season to be the next main band? What? She's not a thing in this season.
Oh, yeah.
And
I have some things to
and
say, but go
then,
ahead.
but like, then she shows up. It's like, hey, look, I made myself a toy. We can use them. And it's like, oh, good on you, awesome. It's like, great. This is where the plot should have begun, not be the cliffhanger to the next step, to the next season. That's my main thing. That it feels like they built up stuff, and when push comes to shove, it's like, okay, we're not really going to do anything with it now. You'll have to wait. And to people who watched this initially, they had to wait an entire year
Hmm.
before seeing what was up with this. So
So
why drag this on so much?
I like how they did it. Like I like Lenore's gradual turn and then the big reveal of her. I like how you can see Lenore playing Hector the entire time. I like how you
Yeah.
can see Lenore being manipulative and just a horrible person to a degree. Like, you can see there's a kindness there, but you can still see she is a vampire. You can quite literally tell she doesn't see Hector as anything more than a puppy, like quite
Oh,
literally
definitely.
a dog. She calls
Yeah,
him good
she
boy all
even
the
walks him.
time,
Yeah, she
and she
walks
walks
him
him with a
around
leash.
with a
Like,
leash.
you can, like, they're not subtle about what she's doing. Like,
What is subtle?
but
What is the word? I don't think they
I
know
don't think
it.
we've talked about it too much, but a lot of this was written by Warren Ellis, and from what I
Oh
understand of
yeah,
Warren
you know,
Ellis, subtlety isn't exactly one of his strengths.
and not only that. Apparently, I just read this minutes before we started recording. Apparently, the guy is also not going to be involved in a spin-off show that they're doing because he was apparently accused of, of sexual assaults and stuff. And it's like, this
Mm.
puts things in so much more perspective, honestly. So,
Yeah, yeah, I can see why. Wow, jeez, always. But yeah, like Warren Ellis, not great at subtlety at the very least, but I still enjoyed seeing, the subtle. Well, I keep saying subtle, not great at subtlety. I
yeah.
enjoyed seeing Lenore like reveal that kind of darker side to herself while also still keeping that kindness. Then just the big reveal at the end, like, hey, you're just my pet. I've, you know, all the, you can tell like maybe some of that was real, but you have no clue what. You can, genuinely see just how manipulative and what's the word? Emotionally manipulative that she is, right? Like just how
Yeah.
awful she is. And that's why I enjoy her. I love the turn that they do with her.
By the way, I just want to say if people uploaded some of those scenes to some websites that people go on, that people go to in order to unwind, let's say, I am sending you, and I am referring you to my psychiatrist because I am deeply concerned about you. That's all I'm gonna
I'm
say.
sure they are. If you're referring, Rule 34 HC, it exists for a reason.
Don't you think I know that? I think the creators of the show knew it way too well, though,
But yeah,
because
I like Lenore,
and this is
but
not this is not even the worst scene with it, but we'll get to that
yeah.
one.
So, but yeah, I enjoy Lenore. I
Yeah,
enjoy Striga and Morana, the two lesbian vampire ladies who you don't really get to do a lot with, but they're interesting. They're cool
which again, there's
designs,
an
but
interesting, yeah, like, but that's the thing. Cool designs, cool ideas. Nothing is done with them.
yeah, I
Nothing.
what I want to say, right, is one, I like Lenore. I like what she does as a character, but she's doing it to Hector, and Hector's just the most gullible fucking idiot in the world. He literally is
Yeah.
a puppy that
Mm-hmm.
you just, oh my god, you're a fucking idiot and I hate you for it. Like, please be just a smidgen smarter, or just be willing to just something. I need something from you. And you just don't get it. And it's just all this stuff they show Lenore doing just feels kind of useless because it's Hector. If it was anyone else, maybe I would care. Maybe I would give a shit. If it was Lenore doing this to Trevor, maybe it would be more interesting. But it's Hector, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
eh.
And also that will mean that Saifa would have to kick her ass, which honestly I'm for. Give it to me in the next season, please.
Uh
If
huh.
season,
That'll happen.
but okay. But again, so you mentioned Carmilla. I said that last season built her up big time, and it seemed like in
Mm-hmm.
this season she was gonna be. What was she in this season? What was she?
So
She was a footnote.
it's set up for the next season.
Which is the problem? Which is the fucking problem? I'm not. Am I reading the prequel comic, or is this the actual
No,
season?
you're reading. Well, now you're
I'm
reading the
reading the
prequel
prequel.
comic. Before
Yeah,
you were
there
reading
you
the
go.
prequel to the prequel comic. Now you're reading the prequel comic. Then we're going to get into the actual comic, and it's going to be good, baby.
This season, it's not even a trailer. It's one of those trailers for the trailer, which is a fucking dumb concept, and I'm glad it's dying down. But
listen, there's things I would like to say, but it does require having seen season 4 to some degree, so I can't say those things. But I will say,
and at the same time though, if you need to kind of compare this, to talk about this in relation to season 4, then you know what, great that it has payoff, but at the same time, again, this season came out with us not even being sure there's a season 4.
I'll say this, right? I can say this without spoiling anything. I don't think you're going to like the payoff, because at least I don't think you're going to like the payoff in terms of there's no connection, right? Season 4 continues to be a dueling storylines. It's no longer everyone is separated. People do get back together, but it is still a story of essentially Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard, and Hector and Isaac. And I'm going to be honest. Again, I really liked Isaac by the end of this. I enjoyed that character a lot. I think they did really well with Isaac. But the problem is it's two different stories, and I feel like by the end of it all, they could have taken these two different stories and made them two completely separate shows and had something more enjoyable, right? You could have had Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard's, show, and then you could have had Hector and Isaac's show, right? Because Hector and Isaac are from the games. They are people that, people know these characters. They may not be as famous as Trevor, but they're still,
and they're also, again, they're also from like the way later entries, and the entries that people care less for or bring up less when you hear Castlevania.
But you could have done that though. Yeah, you could have started off with Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard. You could have told their story, made it more fleshed out, and it's basically just them getting to the point of killing Dracula. And you have Hector and Isaac in Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard's story, right, in their show. But they're not the focus. The focus is those three traveling together, working towards beating Dracula, finally killing Dracula, and then you see Hector and Isaac get separated at the end of it. And they kind of end off on this thing of, Carmilla doing some shit maybe. And then we go into another show where it's Hector and Isaac now. And they're the focus. And we're seeing them doing stuff.
Do the Tales of Arcadia thing, basically.
Yeah. Which I think worked out really well.
Yeah, but mostly. This is where I stop you, though, and I say again, they could have done anything with this. They could have, and you could say that I would maybe like the payoff, I may not like the payoff. It all comes down to the same problem, that the season as it is not finished. It's a lot of stuff that doesn't really go anywhere, and that's my main issue. Why am I watching this if there's no point?
I get you. I again, for me, it became I'm watching this because of the characters thing, less any main plot, because at the end of the day, there's not really a main plot to speak of anymore. The main plot is watching these characters go on their separate stories and journeys, and watching them
fine. But so you know
do
what?
things.
I actually thought about this. If you want to do it, then like I said, don't make it split episodes out so that in one episode you're in this section. Just have all the plot lines like take place, maybe like 3 episodes for Trevor and Sypha, 3 episodes for Alucard, 3 for Hector, and then 3 for Isaac, let's say. And there you go. You solve the problem, because then it's like an anthology thing.
Which is fair, but we didn't get that though.
Yeah, we didn't, and if you ask me, they missed it, and we missed out that we didn't, because I feel like if each of those was like, let's say, kind of like, and it doesn't necessarily overlap, but like in Black Mirror, that you have a few episodes that each episode is like an hour and a half, but each episode is also like its own plot in the same theme. So
Mm.
do this, and eventually like bring this all into like one big hurrah or something. But okay, we got what we got. No reason to delve into this anymore. But
You know,
man, did what we get disappoint me?
I do get you, right? Again, I think we got enough good out of it that it's worth watching and that it's enjoyable. But I do get where you're coming from. I think there's a lot of flaws and faults in it. You know, I used to say I love the show. I started doing this with you, and I think you've turned me into hating it now. No. But
It's not just because again you can be critical of
no.
the thing you like, and
Absolutely.
and I should clarify again. I'm the one who came in as somewhat of a Castlevania fan.
I'm just someone who knows of Castlevania.
Yeah. So, but again, casual Castlevania fan. I'm not big into
Hmm.
the entire thing. But anyway, so
Well, we've
we
covered a
got
Hector
we got
story.
Hector.
Let's jump
Yeah, we got
into
Hector out of the way.
something that Hector story. Don't much care about. Meh. Could do
Yeah.
without it. Wouldn't change nothing in my opinion. Except you have
Who's the
Isaac's
next
story,
one?
which I actually, again, I really like. I liked Isaac's journey. After season 3, I really was, I was very much interested and enjoyed Isaac as a character. I loved his journey. It has nothing to do with anything other than Hector and him wanting to get to Styria to kill Hector and kill Carmilla. That's literally it. And we don't see him get to that point in this season, other than we're seeing him build to it. But there's that. She's saying great. We didn't get to do nothing with that one either. But which I get, right? Like you don't get to do anything with Isaac other than watching him journey to getting close to accomplishing his goal, but not accomplish his goal. And that just comes
You said
back.
3 words. You said a few words. A phrase. That phrase is not in that season.
Mhm.
I said my thoughts about the medal. No need to repeat myself. Moving on.
No, we gotta, stall for time too, HC. So feel free to repeat yourself. We'll do what the show does. We'll just stretch it out.
No, let's just start, and then we'll cut to maybe what Rush is doing in his home right now, and then we'll
randomly
cut
has nothing to do with anything. We don't know what Rush is doing.
Yeah, and in one of our guests is doing grocery shopping or something, and then they'll come back to us. So Alucard.
Well, speaking of Isaac, right? Again, I loved what they did with that, right? It's enjoyable seeing his journey. I loved seeing him kind of maybe turn from, wanting strictly revenge to also maybe wanting to do other stuff or trying to consider other things. I love how he hates humanity with a passion in general, wants all of humanity to die, but he's also met with people like the captain, very fun character, right? Very small side character who allows him and all his night creatures onto his boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love the old man who gives him the mirror, who says, hey, having, and makes the joke of, having a forge master owe me a favor might do me some good when I go to hell myself someday.
Mm-hmm.
There's some interesting stuff going on there, but yeah, that's it. It's just an enjoyable small side story that ends with us not getting to see his goal accomplished, or what he plans to do with said goal, right? Until the next
at least
season.
a meaningful step in that direction of completing that
The
goal.
only thing we see him do is starting to create his army. The only thing we see him do is starting to create his army, and he gains the transmission mirror, which means he can teleport him and his army to where Hector and Carmilla is, and that's literally it.
Mm-hmm. So, with that said,
jump into Alucard if you want.
Yeah, I guess
Another
we can do
story I didn't care
Alucard.
about. Like, again,
Yeah,
Alucard's a fun character, but there's really nothing that changes for Alucard here, in my opinion, other than him growing.
and that's not true. That's not true. Maybe he lost his virginity, so maybe there's that. I don't know. That's
Fair, I suppose, but it's other than that, right? It's just him being more depressed and maybe becoming a bit more like his father and a bit more. I hate humanity too. They're all dicks, but
but
it's
which I
nothing goes
think,
on here, and that's saying something
which
because I
I
like
yeah,
Alucard.
yeah. Again, it's like okay, he has Dracula's castle now. He has all the Belmont history documented right outside the house. And then these like two people show up and like, hey, we are interested in the engine of the castle. And then he just takes them hiking and they
Well, they're interested
tell
in.
story.
They're from Japan. One of the vampires of Dracula's court was, evil and being an overlord towards them and treating them and other humans like terrible garbage because that's what vampires do. Yada, yada, yada. We're interested in killing vampires now, and we came here to kill this lady. Oh, she's already dead. You killed her. Cool. Well, would you teach us to be vampire hunters? And then it turns into, oh yeah, we're teaching some stuff. We're getting along. Everything's going fine. He's not telling us stuff. He's lying to us. He's keeping stuff from us. Then our response
Uh,
is to kill him.
yeah,
That
and
escalated
then
fast
and then all of a sudden he kills them,
because he's not going to let
and
them kill him. So,
of course, but it's like again, yeah, he killed them. What is he gonna do with this? What happened? What is the happen? Someone tell me what is the happen already. I'm looking for the happen.
well, the happen is he stakes them,
See,
and
let me guess. Season default. I know.
no, it's not season 4. No, I'll tell you now, nothing happens with this.
Seriously?
Literally nothing.
Then what
You
was the point
you
even
see
more?
Alucard become more distanced from people later into season 4. You see him, I hate people. I'm a big grump now. And that's kind of it.
If this is
You
what it was
see,
supposed
you
to
see
set
their
up, then
skeletons. Eh.
if this is what it was supposed to set up, then I'm sorry. No, no,
No,
no, no, no.
I'll spoil that one for you. Don't go into season 4 expecting some big payoff for these two characters dying. It means nothing. It goes nowhere.
Okay.
Don't even
Thanks for
bother.
thanks for letting me know. And yeah,
Again,
fuck.
like I the only thing I can tell you is the payoff is character development. It's showing Alucard becoming more distant and more grumpy. Really, that's kind of it. I honestly think
You-
they just separated Alucard, and it's like, we need to keep this character around. What do we do with him during season 3? I don't
Why
know.
is that? Why is this entire subplot feels like one of those ways that all of these people are trying to stretch How the Grinch Stole Christmas into an hour and a half long movie when in originality the original story is like 30 minutes. And then they need to shove in like a backstory to why these characters hate humanity. And on the one hand, great backstory. On the other hand, that
Well,
backstory
I
is done
mean,
so terribly that what was the point?
I think the idea is, if I'm not mistaken, in some of the games, right, like Alucard, like you fight Dracula, you kill Dracula with Alucard's help, and then in like the next game or something like that, Alucard's the one you think, oh, Dracula's back, I'm going there to kill Dracula, but actually it's Alucard the entire time because Alucard turned evil for whatever means. And I think
All,
like
all I
that's
can
supposed to
tell
be the
you,
idea, but again,
like,
that don't
all I
happen.
can
They go
tell
nowhere with
you,
that.
all I can really tell you, like for certain, is that Alucard is the main playable character who goes on the journey to kill Dracula in Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, but
If
I think
there,
after that, right? Like, there's a game or two after that where Alucard is the main
this
villain to a
so
degree.
you say this, so like this is from the point where I kind of lost track of
Mm.
what Castlevania game is which.
No,
So
our commenters can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a thing. And again, I think that's what this is possibly a reference to. Like, oh, they might be doing that. But I'm going to be honest, I'll spoil it now. It's not a major spoiler. They go nowhere with that plot line. They do nothing with
yeah,
that.
okay.
They do other stuff with
And
Alucard. I'm not going to tell you what, but if you're
yeah,
expecting some continuation from this, no.
well, with that said, Trevor and Cypher, which
My
I
most
guess
favorite.
is, yeah, I think it was because it was the one which actually gave us some sort of payoff, even if it's like, okay, we did this, now we move on to the next adventure. It at least gave us something by the end. Then we got an honestly really badass fight at the end.
Hmm.
Like, when Trevor uses both whips together, that was actually pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing Cypher doing all of her magic stuff and everything, and then getting like a peek into literal hell where we see Dracula and his wife reunited and
Hmm.
stuff. It's like, okay, we picked it up. There are interesting things happening now. Okay, too bad it's in the end.
I mean, I enjoy kind of like the smaller focus. Okay, it's them in one town now, and it's just them basically trying to fight off some mad monks from trying to re-summon Dracula back to back to the living, right, from hell. And that's kind of that's the story. That's it. Like, that's the entire thing. And you see
Yeah,
them, accomplish that goal, but you also see them, at the end of it all, fail to protect the town, fail to save anybody really, right? Like, the town is destroyed
yeah,
at the end. Like,
and
you
and
even have.
again, it's one.
Oh, go
And
ahead.
it's also one of those things. Again, it's also one of those things. Which, on the one hand, I know Castlevania kind of dealt with that in some of the games, and even the previous seasons kind of talk about this. But when it essentially comes to a religious prick is being a prick, I am so sick of this trope. And I'm not sure if this is something that's gonna come into play in the next season. Don't tell me yet, but
I mean,
again, it's one of those that like there was a religious prick, we took care of them.
to
Is
be
this
fair,
going to be the thing? Is this going to be the thing for Trevor and Cypher going forward?
with the show, this is less a religious prick and more a religious man who his entire religion kind of brought the downfall of Wallachia just because they killed one person. And, it's the church's fault that all hell broke loose. And these people kind of lost their minds at that point. Like, how could the church let all of this happen, right? And you kind of have the entire, like, them questioning all of that. And then they kind of just get controlled by a night beast.
Mm-hmm.
Mind control, kind of not. Hard to say, really. Either way, like, it's less religious person being a prick and more religious person falling prey to insanity, which
I
is also
guess,
something very common that we see where religious people fucking crazy, yo. We've seen this in a lot of shows.
yeah.
And maybe that's
By the way,
true, maybe it's not.
I love how you have to say that in like a cool, subtle voice. Like, really, that was the best way to do
No, it wasn't. I mean, it's something
it.
you see a lot in shows, right? A lot of
Yeah, I
shows have
get
done
you.
stories like that of religious people are awful, religious people are crazy. Some of them are. Some of them aren't.
Hmm.
Depends on who you talk to and who you meet and where and when. Which again, and you do have to, look back at the time period we're set in, right? All of this is like in the 1800s, 1700s, stuff like that, right? And
Hmm.
religious people were kind of more crazy back then. People were kind of awful back then. It does make some sense what's going on, but eh, that's
Exactly.
kind of why I think personally I enjoyed the judge's story way more, because
Mhm.
this is just a tale of a man who leads his town. He leads his town with a very
Yeah.
iron grip and very, kind of almost despotic in the way he does it, because I love the because his reveal I think is done way better than the Norse because you genuinely believe this guy's a good guy, that he cares about his town. Maybe he's overly strict, but you at least believe that he cares about his town, that he wants to keep the people safe and he wants this place to do well, and he's damn good at his job too. But then you get to the end and you find out that, oh, this dude's killed a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out, like, the little kid he sent to get some apples, you find out he killed that kid. He sent that kid into a spike trap and killed him, and he's done this to a lot of other young kids. Damn, like, that's a good reveal. They did so great with that, in my opinion. Like, that character was done so well.
It's, again, if I could actually, if I wasn't so tired by the time we got to this part, maybe I would be singing a different tune here. But I think I was so done when this happened.
I really enjoyed it. I really liked that reveal. I think it was well done.
The reveal itself is good. I mean, don't get me wrong, the reveal itself is good, but I'm just saying that by the time this really good reveal happens, I was just so done with this whole thing. I was just tired from this show. I just wanted to fall. And it actually kind of drained me when we got to it. It's like, okay, that's interesting, but I wish I could have given a shit.
Fair. So, speaking more of Trevor and Cypher's story, what do you think about Saint Germain?
It's the guy that helps them out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, am I?
He's the guy who's trying to get into the Infinite Corridor.
At first I thought he was kind of sus, but honestly, I enjoyed him. He was fun, because I think he was a good, middleman for Trevor's extreme and Cypher's more calm and down to earth demeanors. He played off of them well.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, and he was helpful in the climax too, which I appreciate. Again, the guy had a purpose.
Yeah, he's actually, the only one who had a goal and technically accomplished that goal. Opening, finding a portal to the Infinite Corridor and getting into the Infinite Corridor.
Yep. Someone accomplished something in this season of Castlevania.
Season 4. I will say, I loved what they did with the Infinite Corridor when you see it within, like, Saint Germain's dream, right? Where you see the kind of different worlds that he sees and the different animation styles they use, like the giant robot walking over, or, some of it's similar animation style, nothing really majorly different. Like, you get a peek into, I believe it's Australia, and some of the Aboriginal folk there, right? When you see one shot and you see another shot of, like, a spaceship rising up and something going on there, and you see the giant robot walk over top of him, and just a lot of different other stuff going on, right? A lot of fun and enjoyable stuff. Like, I loved that.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely agreed.
But this was the animators really showing off, and then. Again.
Yeah, and again, it's so in this animated show, they only had the chance to show up and use their medium in the final episode. One episode out of 10.
Give them credit where credit. No, it's like 2. We had the big fight scene that looked really good, like you said, with using both. But
wasn't it in season 10? In episode 10?
The dream wasn't in episode 10. It was a few episodes before that. But so they got 2 episodes where they got to show off. Give them credit.
Yeah, and okay, fine. Yeah, but again, still, out of 10 episodes a season, only 2 they actually get to do something.
That's fair. Like, we don't see a lot of heavy animation work in this season, which isn't as fun, right? I will admit, and I do agree, like, because these are amazing animators. They do really well.
Yeah, these are talented people who can't use their talent. I'm pissed. I'm annoyed.
So, overall, it sounds like season 3 probably your least favorite?
You know what? Yeah, because in the other two, even if I wasn't necessarily a fan of how they handled the plot that they tried to adapt, and even if I had
Mhm.
things I didn't necessarily like, I still walked out saying, you know what? I'm happy I saw this. There are moments where I was happy that I could say I experienced this. This just left me with nothing. This just left me with, okay, I guess I need to finish season 4 afterwards because I have a podcast to do about it. But let's just say if we just decided to give up and not do this part, I wouldn't finish the season. It would have just kept being stuck. And Netflix would have forgotten about it at some point for me.
Oof.
Mhm.
I I get how you feel. Again, I personally don't agree. I really enjoyed a lot of the character exploration this season does.
Which is fair. It's just, and again, it's not the character explanation I have a problem with. Is that it's just that I don't think they manage their time well.
Mhm.
I
Which is fair.
oh
And I do agree with, right. I do think there's stuff that could be cut or done better that would just make the season overall more enjoyable. Like again, like you said before, right? Like start with Hector already being turned, right? I know it takes away from Lenore's big, character journey herself, right? And seeing how horrible of a human being, how horrible of a person she is, but it, it's still, it's Hector. This man,
so
I'm
the whole
sorry, Hector,
thing.
but you get nothing every season you're in. Like,
Mhm.
I'll give you credit, Hector. You get some stuff season 4 that, like, all right, I like this. But that's not saying much, my dude, because you had 2 seasons prior where you just got nothing. The other people around you are more interesting, but they had to play off you, and you're just meh.
Yeah, I get it. I get
Hector
it.
Hector is literally white bread, and it's not good. I'm sorry. Just gotta say it.
Well, nothing wrong with it, honestly. Just opinions be opinions,
He is
and
a
yeah, I
puppy
kind of
made
get
out
it.
of white bread. You don't know whether it's not gonna taste good to eat, and you don't even know if you want to hug it. It's just, what do I do with you? Eh, have a pat on the head. Now go away, please. Not even doesn't even get a. I'm not even gonna give that a good analogy. It's a terrible analogy. I admit it's awful analogy. That's all Hector gets.
Mhm.
But yeah, overall, I like Castlevania season 3. I think there's a lot of good here. I do think it's worth your time. Not going to lie though, it is watching back through it now. It's fairly flawed. There is a lot of flaws here. There's a lot that's wrong with it that I honestly don't enjoy. But if you're interested in continuing and finishing out at least Trevor's sci-fi and Alucard story, it's worth the watch, right? I think there's enough good stuff here that you'll find some enjoyment.
Mhm. So, anything else?
No, that's all for me. I really can't say much about season 3 other than what we've already said.
So that's all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What are your thoughts about Castlevania Season 3? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below. On our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team, and on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf, and I can't wait to hear what HC thinks about season 4.
Next week, hopefully.
Until then, bye bye.
See you later.